All right, let's move forward and talk wide receivers and do a deep dive on our receivers this week. If you missed any of the last couple of shows, we did a deep dive on QBs, running backs. Today we're doing wide receivers, looking at Harrison's rankings, and then we'll look at kind of both of our philosophies a little bit on how we approach the position when drafting, our strategy going in, our strategy throughout. And so why don't you just run through your top 10 real quickly, and then I'll give some thoughts.
All right. So number 1 is Jamar Chase, which I know it's probably a hot take for a
That's a
lot of
hot
people,
take.
but I've got reason behind it. Number 2 is Justin Jefferson. 3 is Cooper Kupp. 4, Tyreek Hill. Number 5, Stephon Diggs. 6, CD Lamb. 7, Devontae Adams. 8, Garrett Wilson. 9, AJ Brown. 10, Chris Olave. And then 2 guys right outside the top 10 are Keenan Allen at 11 and Amon-Ra St. Brown at 12.
Okay. I can't believe you've got Keenan Allen as a top 12 wide receiver. You talk about guys falling off like Lockett. To me, Keenan Allen's got to be in that conversation too. But I've been waiting for that for a number of years. Adams, I was listening to something earlier on ESPN, and Adams, all he does is do well. Like, no matter who the quarterback is, he does well. And there's something to be said about that. But do I trust Jimmy G with Devontae? Not as much. I'm not willing to spend a top pick on Devontae with the Raiders situation. But here is my wide receiver room strategy, and I'll speak to some of those guys in your top 12. And so, obviously, the first, so I want 5 wide receivers, okay? At least 5, depending on how many draft picks you have. But here are my top 5 wide receivers, and I'd like to touch on each of these categories to kind of have that complete room and set myself up for a season-long success. So, obviously, you need a stud. You need a proven star, a wide receiver that's been there, done that. He's elite. So if you get Justin Jefferson, awesome. I'm still taking him number 1. Chase, absolutely. I like CD Lamb as a top guy. And I told you I like DK Metcalf and AJ Brown. So I want one of those studs. And depending on kind of where they go in the draft, maybe it's a first round, maybe it's a second round guy, but I got to get one of those guys. And then I need somebody that is a rising star, that has the potential. He's shown me a glimpse of it, but I see it, and I see that he could really do it. And so that's why Chris Olave. I'm on that train. He's getting a lot of hype, and I think it's fair with what he did last year, adding Derek Carr as the QB. Oh, he's gonna feast, as they say, this year. I told you last week, you're out on Jerry Jeudy. I'm in on Jerry Jeudy. So I want him as that wide receiver too. Also in that Chris Olave category, Drake London in Atlanta. I don't like him as much as Olave, but I like Drake London. And then I like Brandon Ayuk as another guy. And again, we talked about him last week, but he's a guy that can step up. He's got the high potential. I'm good with him. So I want one of those guys. Then the third category, the guys that slip, or the guys you can get a little bit later in drafts. And so I like the value when Deontay Johnson falls. I like Brandon Cooks now in Dallas. I love Nico Collins in Houston. He was good even with the sorry Texans the last couple of years, and I just have my eye on him, and I think this year he's going to really break out. And then I know I'm going long here. The sleepers with upside, guys that are just falling, somewhat under the radar, and you get even a little bit later. So guys like George Pickens and now Gabe Davis, the post hype with him, Elijah Moore going to Cleveland. Jacoby Myers, even though I know I just said I'm not big on Devontae Adams, but Jacoby Myers is good. So he's going to be the number 2 there in Las Vegas. So I like him as a later guy. Zay Flowers, Rashid Shaheed. And then lastly, my 5th kind of tier of guys, give me somebody steady. Give me somebody that I know he's not the wide receiver 1, but he's a good wide receiver 3, even on his team, and can be a wide receiver 5 for me. So give me Alan Lazard, give me Zay Jones, Adam Thielen, DJ Chark, Darius Slayton, and Alec Pierce. So if you want to know what wide receivers I like, there you go. Those are my guys this year. Anything jump out to you, Harrison?
Yeah, so I think my strategy this year is, I agree with you. I want one of those stud guys in round 1 or round 2. I'm not waiting on wide receiver this year because I think there's a clear, top 7, 8 guys who are just different from the rest of the guys in the draft. And I want one of those guys on my team. But then after that, I honestly don't think I'm really going to take a receiver until like round 5 through 8, just because of the value that we see falling in drafts with, QB and tight ends going so high.
True.
That's pushing a lot of these second tier receivers back. And you have guys like, we've seen it before from Terry McLaurin, DJ Moore, like they're falling into the 5th rounds of drafts. And I really like that value. I think they'll both finish as top 20 guys. If I can get them in the 5th, that's great. And then, like you said, just going all in and grabbing multiple guys with upside, like Brandon Ayuk, Christian Kirk is in the 6th round, Pickens, Jahan Dotson are guys in the 7th, 8th round. So I think have great upside. So if I can get one stud guy to hold down my receiver room, and then, 3-4 guys in those mid rounds who provide a lot of either great value or breakout opportunity, I think that's the way to go. I don't think you need to take 3 receivers with your top 4 picks. Get one guy, then get your running backs, and then find value later. You can always find receivers who are good. And especially when you're taking receivers, like you said, you have your different archetypes of receivers who you want to balance out the breakout guys versus the steady guys. I like to look to that on a week-to-week basis as well when I'm drafting. I don't want to draft just a bunch of Keenan Allens who are going to get me, 12, 13 points every single week and never really bust, but never have a fantastic week either. And I don't want to get a bunch of guys like Mike Williams who might give you 25 points one week and then 3 points the next week. I think you need to have a nice balance of, okay, this guy I can count on to get me 6 receptions for 70 yards and a nice, 13 points. And then in my flex, I'm going to grab a guy who, he may only have 2 catches for 20 yards one week, but then the next week he might go, 5 catches for 120 and 2 touchdowns because he's a huge deep threat. I think balancing that within your lineup on a week-to-week basis also really, gives you a great upside, but also isn't going to, kill your week if your receivers aren't producing.
That's the key word. And it seems somewhat obvious, but we have to be diligent as drafters to be balanced. Because if you get caught up in the draft and all of a sudden you've drafted 3 rookie wide receivers, the chances are you're going to get in trouble because they're not going to be good until later in the year, maybe, or one of them will be good right away. And then the other 2, you have to wait so long. You're going to end up dropping one of them. And so be balanced. Get a couple guys that are going to be solid. Like Alan Lazard, he'll catch 1 touchdown every 4 weeks, maybe, but he'll get, 4 passes every week from his boy, Aaron Rodgers. He'll get 60 yards. There's 10 points for you every week. So get him on your team. You can count on him. And so you gotta have some of that. But then if you get a bunch of boring, 10 points a week guys, then you don't have upside. You got to get some of those huge weeks as well. So you need young guys, you need veterans. And so have a plan going in, but then also in the middle of the draft, like once you kind of check off one of these spots, don't continue to load up with a bunch of rookies or a bunch of, hyped guys and then, or don't get a bunch of post-hype guys. Because what if Gabe Davis just isn't good, right? He's not going to be good enough. So there's that chance. So don't get a bunch of those types of guys either. So that's the encouragement there. As far as your rankings go, sorry, we'll go back to that a little bit too. Come on, Cooper Kupp at 3 and Tyreek at 4. I can't go there. So I understand why they're ranked there, but if I'm sitting at the 3rd spot in the draft, I just can't trust Cooper Kupp with the injury, coming off of an injury, and Matthew Stafford coming off an injury. I know all the indications are that they're good, and Cooper, I know, is a little day-to-day banged up and all that. But at 3, to put him at, I love Cooper Kupp. Got me to the championship a couple years ago. But anyway, that's my criticism, or just, I can't believe I get it, but I don't feel good about it.
Yeah, my one defense of Cooper Kupp is when he's on the field, especially last year, he was amazing. I mean, he was the clear away wide receiver 1 again before he got injured. He was averaging 3 more fantasy points per game than Justin Jefferson until he got injured, which I don't see that gap. I don't see him averaging 10 less points per game this year. I think he's still going to be easily a top 5 guy if he is healthy. But I think to talk about, I put Jamar Chase at number 1. Yeah. And I think that's probably what a lot of people would notice, and not, how do you not have Justin Jefferson at number 1? He's had one of the greatest receiver seasons ever. Jamar Chase, what excites me about him is I don't think there's a lot of room for Justin Jefferson to get better. I think he's going to be fantastic, but is he going to go for 2,000 yards this year? Probably not. We have not seen Jamar Chase's best season yet, and he is one of the most talented wide receivers in the league. Last year we saw his usage completely change and he became that same target level, monster as a Kupp or Jefferson, getting 12 targets per game. And the reason I have him ahead of Kupp and Jefferson is because if I'm going to bet on a guy to have an unbelievable season, I'm going to bet on the guy in one of the best offenses, if not the best offense in the NFL. Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase are going to put up so many points this year. And I don't think it would be that crazy if, we saw Jamar Chase have 16 or 17 touchdowns in the Bengals offense, being the number one guy for Joe Burrow. Because Joe Burrow's probably going to throw around 40 touchdowns. I don't see Kirk Cousins throwing 40 touchdowns, which limits Jefferson's touchdown upside a little bit. I don't see Matthew Stafford throwing for 40 touchdowns, which limits Cooper Kupp's touchdown upside a little bit as well. So if I'm going to bet on someone to be number one, I'm going to bet on the guy who is in the best offense in the NFL, probably passing wise.
Yeah, hopefully Burrow's healthy. And so there's, a little concern there, but he should be good to go week 1 and, get the rust off initially and then be good to go. And those two, their chemistry and Burrow's on the rise. As much as we all love Kirk Cousins from the QB show, he's on the decline. There's no getting around it. Like, he had a great year last year, but he's not getting better. Kirk Cousins isn't getting better. Joe Burrow, absolutely. He's got the chance for that.